Evening, Mr. Shaw.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Superintendent, board members. I'm going to start with something I usually don't do, and that's a defense of the board. Last week, you acted as an appeal court, basically. You could not overturn a decision of the hearing officer unless there was a finding of fact that was wrong or a finding of law. So you didn't have the right to sit down and judge the whole case for its merits or anything else because a hearing officer appointed by the Commissioner of Education had already done that. So whether you agreed or disagreed politically or philosophically with the decision of the hearing officer, basically all you could really do was to see if there were finding of fact or finding of law that was wrong. That's the Texas system. And so I understand what you did. I understand the previous speakers, but you didn't have that right, to be honest with you. You had to determine, like an appeal court, of whether the law had been violated or the facts were wrong. Now I would like to speak about discipline in our schools. Discipline is an important issue. It's probably one of the most important issues that teachers deal with. I want to make it perfectly clear, I'm not talking about violence, and I'm not talking about Ohio, and I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about students who persistently interrupt the class, destroy the continuity of the lesson, and basically come to really just do what they want to do. It's an important part of not only a teacher's classroom, but of the schools in general, because parents will pull their children out of schools quicker for lack of discipline than they will academics, believe it or not. They want to know that their children are safe. And the problem that we're seeing in our schools is not only in Arlington, but it's all over. Kids are basically allowed to do what you tolerate. They're allowed to do what their parents tolerate. They're allowed to do what their teachers tolerate. But at the bottom of this chain is the teacher. Frankly, many teachers are not real good disciplinarians. They were good kids in school, they were good students in school, and they had parents that would hurt them if they acted up. Today, we find kids who can do pretty much what they want because the parents let them. Teachers also really don't have the power that people think they do. They have their consequences. And what happens if a child decides they're not going to follow those consequences, the next step is to call the parents. And if the parents don't do anything, then you send them to the office. Too many times the office itself is hamstrung because they have nothing they can do. And they send them back to the teacher. As soon as they send them back to that teacher, then the teacher has no control of that classroom anymore. There are too many teachers, not only in this district or in this state, but are in this country, that are dealing with children who could care less about coming to school to learn. They're dealing with children who they send to the office and they beat them back to the classroom. You know, I look at principals sometimes and they say, this teacher has horrible discipline. And I say, what did you do? And that's a very, very important question. Because if a student is allowed to act up in front of the teacher and then the principal, then the teacher has no power anymore. The teacher has no control anymore. So, in bottom line, we don't get what the teacher tolerates, we get what you tolerate. Principals will tell me real quickly, Larry, we would do more, but if we do, parents complain. And as a result, they're returned to the classroom. We spend 90% of our time dealing with 10% of the children. And you know, we don't really have to. There are other choices that kids who won't act up can go to. We don't have just public schools. We have parochial schools. We have private schools. And we have charter schools. But we get what you tolerate. I'm sincerely hoping that in your strategic plan that you look at discipline. You look at what kids are allowed to do, and you have some type of system where kids are not allowed to control the classroom. Set standards, look at them, and then enforce them. Thank you.